Hi, it's Kamon Reynolds, and it's a cool windy day here in June, but the bees are bringing in some nectar in this bee yard, and it is awesome. It's not a heavy flow, but it's still a lot better than having to feed your bees or something like that. Now most of these colonies have packed plenty for themselves and for us. It's wonderful. This cool, unusually cool June weather is very much appreciated by the bees and us. Less work on their part to cool the hive down. The clover produces better when it's not too terribly hot. It's just really wonderful. So the bees are just gliding in. It's not a heavy flow, but it's still a flow, and we will take it. This is one of our great bee yards. Even in a bad year, it still does good. Good bee yards in a bad year do poorly, and a bad bee yard, well, it just stinks. That's my house. Look at that honey. This is wet-capped honey. It's pretty much just right on top of the honey, no airspace there. Beautiful, can't wait to try that out right there. And you see there's no robbing going on. That's a clear indication that there's a flow going on right now. And you know, most of this right here looks like it's wet capped, and some bees a little bit more prone to one or the other. Let's go over here to this box. This medium came off of this hive right here, single brood. They probably have about half of these two full right here. In a good year, I would get 2 deeps off of a colony that was like this one, no problem. And we'll peek into a couple of these other colonies. If you guys watch the video where we move the bees and we use that dolly, these are the colonies, the ones that are on the pallets right here. There's 16 of them we moved over here. I've made some splits. You can see how I've marked a couple of these where I pulled some bees off of them. They were wanting to swarm heavy, and late towards the end of the flow, if they're still wanting to swarm, I just go ahead. If I find the queen, I'll yank her, pull some brood, make a split, gets rid of the swarming tendency. Really doesn't affect the honey crop towards the end of the season at all. I probably need to get the smoke. But I mean, this is what a large honey production colony should look like. In a better year, we'll have another box or so on this one. But there's a lot of honey up in there. Let's get that smoker. Well, you can come over here. Here's another set of the pallets. This is the weakest pallet that I brought over here. And this one was only a deep when we started. I just checked it. There's brood in these 6 frames. It's doubles. I wanted to let them brood up. They weren't going to produce a lot of honey. They've started drawing a little bit in this medium, as far as like not drawing, but filling it up, but not a whole lot. They were way behind the other colonies by a large margin, but this was the smallest hive we brought over. This was one of the good ones. Not the biggest one, but definitely good. And just look at that beautiful, beautiful honey right there. So check this out. A lot of you all have been asking, and well, we're going to show you. So we're going to take this lid right here, and we're going to come back to this in a minute, and we'll see what happens. Now check this box out right here. This one also came off of that colony that the medium came off of. And look at that. That is more dry capping right there. There's a mixture of both in here. The dry capping's more up towards the top and a little bit down in here where it's whiter looking. Really no difference in honey quality whatsoever. Now, you can see how they haven't capped all this. This is a question I get often. How capped does it need to be before you pull it? And there is a lot of variables here. Why can't anything just be yes or no? Oh my goodness. But seriously, bee books will mostly tell you 70% or more is a good sign that it's good. And 99.9% of the time that is going to be the case. There's been some rare cases where that has not been good enough though. Especially if you take your honey supers off and you sit them around and you have very moist air. Honey is hygroscopic, just like syrup is. That's why we use it in our pollen patties, because it draws moisture in. That keeps it from drying out. But the problem is honey can do that if it is in a moist environment. So if you're going to sit your supers in a room for a while, or anywhere, a dehumidifier is highly recommended. Now, I have pulled honey from this yard last year that was about 10% capped, and I'm not talking 1 or 2 frames, we're talking boxes. And I was shocked when I checked with my refractometer that a lot of it was reading about 16% moisture, which 18% is considered good. 16% is good as well, but it was lower than what was necessary and wasn't even hardly capped. So capped doesn't necessarily mean that it is done. They can ripen it up and it still be just fine, but this box is pretty much completely full. I think 1 or 2 of the edge frames is only about 75% full. Love it, love it, love it. And last year we had colonies over here that were like that one over in the corner and like this one over here to the right. You'll have to excuse the bee yard because it is in a state of work. That produced 140 pounds of surplus and overwintered on 100% fall honey last year. But those colonies stayed strong. There are queens. If you see colonies that have an R on them, there's a few of them around here. I requeened several colonies, I made splits basically, and I dropped cells. Well, I did that on 9 of the colonies over here and just came over with some ripe cells from our incubator. Dropped those in about 3 odd weeks ago. Came back today and checked them, and 8 out of 9 came back with the queen. So now for the one that didn't come back with the queen, what we're going to do, because it's a large colony, we pulled bees to make the split, so the bees are getting older. They're not too far gone, but they will be in a few weeks and start going laying worker stage. So on that colony, I already have mated queens at home. I always plan on a degree of loss. We've had wonderful flying weather for the bees, so I'm going to bring a mated queen over here. I'm going to go to one of these queen right colonies, pull a frame of larvae, probably a frame of emerging brood as well, and then plug that in there, put the queen cage in between, probably a little bit of extra candy or pollen patty, give them an extra day or 2 to eat through that candy, get used to her. She'll come on out and that colony will be right as rain. Those are things that we have that for backup plans, because what if it had rained like 10 out of the last 20 days? We might have ended up with only 5 out of 9 or 6 out of 9 or something like that. Got to have backups. Whoops, and I'm in front of these colonies. This one right here is another one of those double screen boards like we had yesterday. Well, or the day before on Sunday's video. I don't even know when we're going to upload this one. It might be 2 weeks from now. But this one had a really poor queen. It was a swarm that we caught, put it in here. Last year it did pretty good. This year, because we didn't requeen it and she was probably old when she swarmed in, she could have been 2 or 3 years old for all we know. And she just did not build up good this year. You know, no diseases or anything like that. But she just couldn't get herself out of 2 deep boxes and make any honey. Well, we got rid of her, put a queen cell below, double screen board, put a queen cell up top, and both of them came back. Talk about backup plans working out really good. Anyways, we're just going through checking boxes and just honey and all kinds of stuff. This one is where it gets dangerous for short beekeepers like myself right here. Now this stand, I'm thinking of getting rid of these stands and lowering everything down, because last year I had more colonies that were this size and some of them even taller, and man, it's too high. I don't have a lift like Ian does, and he's like 6 or 7 inches taller than I am, so he's got, he got all the tall gifts. All right, so we got capped honey up in here, and again, these are colonies we brought over from the house on these pallets. It's just it's awesome. I'm so glad I brought them over here. Our bee yard hardly produced any honey. There's just so much more flora around here, more clover. The farmer, that whole field that the kids are running around in down there was just laced with crimson. The bees weren't able to take full advantage of it, but they still managed to do all right. So anyways, we're just going through here. There's a bunch of colonies down in there as well. You can see, maybe you can see with the camera how the bees are just kind of gliding in. It's because they're so heavy from all that nectar they're bringing in. They're bringing in some pollen over here. Not a whole lot of diversity in pollen like there is in April and May, but still it's It's wonderful to see. We're not having to feed over here. This is a great bee yard, and we've got to find more bee yards like this one for sure. But anyways, I just wanted to share with you guys. A lot of times we're just so busy when we're over here, we just don't take the time to do a video, or I come by myself. And but this is one of our best yards. Things are looking a little bit better than I thought, so I'm hoping we're going to average somewhere around 60 or 70 pounds per honey production colony. You know, we're not counting these suckers over here. And we always keep a hand, some of these, like some of the little colonies we have over here, we keep some extra space, so as the big ones, you know, get too big wanting to swarm, we need somewhere to alleviate that. We'll make some splits, and it might be a frame from this one, a frame, 2 frames from that one, put them together, and always have a little bit of room. So anyways, we're still figuring some things out, but we're excited to be able to pull some honey before too long. Oh, I forgot. Fume board. Check that out right there. All the bees went down. And this isn't completely capped yet over here. Whoops. Ooh, that honey smells good. You can smell that sweet clover coming in. And look at that gorgeous frame right there. A lot of dry capping right there. Oh yeah. Man, I love it. Can't help it. I'm acting like a fool, aren't I? Anyways, you guys take care. I hope there's more of this foolhardiness in the future for you guys. Thanks for watching the video.